Hey there! Welcome to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. With your host, Chuck T.
Well, hey there. How you doing? Welcome to the show. It's the Middle Age Crazy Podcast, and we're here to prove that being an adult does not have to suck. I'm your host, Chuck T, and thanks for tuning in once again. And if you're popping your cherry, welcome. And a big thanks to my buddy Mike Genovese out in Arizona, last time's guest, where we talked about rock climbing, hiking, and mountaineering. He's got a great story, and rock climbing is crazy, and leave it to my buddy Mike to be the only one that has balls that actually do it. And I know I've opened up the last couple shows going, I want to make this nice and quick because I've got sick family or something going on. This shit does not end. If you remember a few weeks ago, the wife had influenza A, then the kid had influenza B. Fuck, the dog had some sort of upper respiratory problem. So I made the huge mistake of waiting until this weekend to finish the show, and of course I ran into a little bit of sickness issues. One was myself. I was kind of hungover Saturday, had my buddy Fuller in town, and we got a little too tore up in the basement, listening to some vinyl, hanging out, and so I wasn't worth much yesterday. And now this weekend, my kid is getting sick again. And of course, with the coronavirus and all that shit, we want to be double cautious. I'm not going to get into corona stuff today, but she had a fever, she was coughing, and then she had a pretty high heart rate. So we called some people, they said bring her on in. So we brought her in about 6:45 this morning. Luckily, does not have corona, doesn't have influenza, just a basic virus that we're going to have to deal with. But it's made for a long weekend. But we're happy Olivia's feeling good. Time to move on. All right, on to business. Find us on social media at MiddleAgePod. We need the follows, likes, and retweets. Come on, hook us up. Tell the world we're awesome. If you need to send me an email, middleagecrazypod@gmail. And I'm still begging you crazy people, give me a call at the hotline, 515-478-3412. I'm dying to play some cool phone calls, but you gotta call me and say something cool, all right? I'm not just gonna put any stupid thing on. It's gotta be at least slightly interesting. Or if you wanna give us feedback, tell me I'm awesome. If you think I totally suck at this, I'll put that on the air as long as somebody calls and says something interesting. And one more thing with this corona bullshit. It figures I just started putting plans in place, talking to a couple venue owners about doing some live Middle Age Crazy podcasts around Iowa, maybe booking some poets, authors, some comedians, but I had some good stuff lined up and that's all on hold right now. So more to come if you're in Iowa. I'll have some details about live shows, hopefully this summer, so stay tuned. And we got a good one this week for a guest. It's my old pal Jennifer Wilson. I legit haven't talked to this woman in over 20 years. I went to high school together with her, played some baseball with her little brother. I know she has an interesting career. She's a life and an executive coach. And I see her posting her company stuff on Facebook and talking about it. And just like Mike's the only guy I know that climbs rocks, she's the only person I know that's a life coach. So I said, hey, come on the show, tell me your story. I have a feeling it's interesting. And boy, is it interesting. She changed midlife, mid-career, went from being a commodities trader to starting her own company. And it wasn't easy. So it's a good story. It's inspirational. You're going to dig it. So we better get ready to the show. I don't have much time to edit this thing. But before we start, it's been a while, but it's time to check in and hear a confession of a 41-year-old man.
Do it.
And now we bring you Confessions of a 41-year-old man.
I find that I iron my clothes more and I pee in the shower less. And this might be me at my peak of refinement. Today, I found myself ironing a Space Ghost shirt before picking up my kid from school. Granted, I was only going to be out of the car momentarily, but I had a nagging sense of needing to be wrinkle-free for the sake of appearances. Peeing in the shower is truly a mix of character and a paranoia that someone is outside simply waiting to hear my flush. If I don't flush, could my wife be ready to interrogate me as soon as I exit the bathroom? Like I said, this is my peak. In 20 years, I will be happy to wear stained undershirts in public, and shorts so short that when I sit in lawn chairs, nothing will be left to the imagination.
Jennifer Wilson, age 44, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I am an executive and life coach.
Okay, it's time to get the show going here with our interview. Got a very interesting guest today. A friend of mine going all the way back to, I think, even elementary school we talked about. Played baseball with her younger brother. So we're going to have some interesting stories today. It's Jennifer Wilson. She's an executive life coach, I believe. I'm going to let her explain it a little better. Jennifer, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good, really good. Chuck T, love it.
Yes, that's my famous person's name, if we're going to go with that. It's actually what I used to use when I had a radio career in my early 20s. That's what I actually used. So, but
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I know
I like it.
What's that?
I like it.
Well, thank you. Do you prefer Jennifer, Jen? What do you prefer?
Well, so professionally, it is becoming Coach Jen,
Okay.
and that works. That works. It's a great way to market, and it seems to be sticking. So
All right. Well, you got to have a tag. You got to have something easy to remember, right?
that's right. That's right. Especially when your name is Jennifer Wilson, because the only way my name could be any more common is if it was Jennifer Smith.
Yeah, it is pretty basic.
Mm-hmm.
You're mixing it up well. And I'm going to be honest with you, I can't even remember the last time I talked to you. I mean, it has to have been
I have
20 years.
Yeah, easily 20 years for sure.
Well, it's funny.
sure.
Every once in a while when I get around my old man and my sister and we're talking old stories, the old Long Grove baseball team does come up every once in a while.
Well, it was funny. So for the listeners that don't know, that you and I actually rescheduled this. And what was funny is if we would have done it the original night, that would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
But the very next morning, I'm having, I do my morning meditation. I practice what I preach. So I'm in my morning meditation, and what pops into my head, and I'm feeling like I was 6th grade and you were 5th grade, but you and I in our acting day, that was my one and only acting job. But I'm like, wait a minute, that was you. We did that together. I was Lady Liberty and you were Uncle Sam for our school play.
What was the theme of the play? I vaguely remember it.
I know.
Was
I
it
don't
just
really
like
remember either.
Like a pro-America type of thing or something?
Must have been. I remember it was Mrs. Albertson. It was her brainchild. I remember that because I remember thinking I had forgotten all about it until Friday morning. And I thought, oh my gosh, because I remembered it was the first and only time, because usually I had to sing to be in plays in school, and
Yes.
I don't sing.
Me
So I
neither.
really wanted that. I remember really auditioning my butt out because I was like, I want this part. I don't have to sing. So that's the main part I remembered from it. But yeah,
That's hilarious.
would have forgotten all about it. Would not have remembered that if we'd have gone on our original day. So I think it's fun.
And I'll be honest with you, that's what kept me from doing any sort of theater as well, was the singing, because I can't sing for shit either. The aspect of the stage and entertainment, all that stuff I like, but yeah, wasn't one for singing either. So no, I get it. Let's kick it off. I like to kind of get the house cleaning out of the way first, as far as if you want to mention your company, social media handles, anything coming up that people might want to pay attention to, pretty much anything you want people to know right this second, so we don't forget to talk about it, as far as where they can find you because we'll get lost in the conversation.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good. So the name of my company is Winley. That's W-I-N-D as in dog, L-E-Y, Winley Works. And it's actually my husband's last name and my last name put together. Same reason again, Jennifer Wilson is just way too common. But if you go to winleyworks.com, Winley Works on Facebook, I'm on Instagram every day, Twitter. I have a blog that I write on Sunday nights. I really encourage people to check it out. It's on Facebook, but you can sign up for it as well. It's going to get really real this year. I'm going to dive into some big topics and get much more vulnerable with the blog, and it's leading to hopefully a couple books. I don't have the dates on the books yet, but I am working with a publisher.
okay, cool.
So anyway, people, if you start following me there, you'll find out as everything else rolls out. But 2020 is going to be a big writing year for me.
Oh, right on. What do you prefer?
Yeah.
Social media? What do you find yourself on the most? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? What do you dig the most?
Well, so the other part of our business is we do a little bit of marketing. So I've learned that if you're on Facebook too much, people will just stop following you. So I try to only be on there, a few times a week. Sometimes it's just once. But Instagram every day. Everybody likes to. So if you want to be interacting with me regularly, probably Instagram. And Twitter I should be using, because honestly, when I do put some things out there, I can have conversations with quote unquote famous people, writers. I can't believe that people have responded to me, but I just don't have a strong Twitter game.
It's tough. I had an old Twitter account for my and I'm doing air quotes, my record label that I had for like 20 years. that I just put mine and my friend's music out under. But I ended up getting kicked off of there because I got in a couple of political arguments, and I swore at a couple of politicians, and somehow I ended up getting booted. And so I had to kind of rebuild, and it's not easy to build because everybody's on there, and there's just some of the god awful, people. I don't know if you saw, because I know we're friends on Facebook. I cracked one joke on a Post Malone over the weekend, and a bunch of millennials came for my head. I had to end up blocking like a handful of kids, and like I deleted the post. I'm like, damn, I'm just cutting a joke. So Twitter's a freaking disaster, if you ask me.
Oh my God, they didn't call you a boomer, did they?
Oh, I got called boomer a bunch of times.
Oh my God.
I'm 43 years old. Oh, dude, it was like, they were like, this one guy goes, F you and your wife and your kid and your whack ass podcast.
Wow.
Like it was insanity. And so I eventually just, I got called a virgin. It was weird.
That's weird.
Yeah, I know. So I'm taking kind of a break from social media, but I'm gonna get us off track. So, would you say your number one thing of what you do is a coach of sorts, a life coach, right? Executive coach.
Well, so
what's the
executive and life coaching. The difference between, first, let me just quickly say the difference between therapy and coaching, because people still, coaching's been around about 30 years professionally and seriously, with training and schooling and all of that. 30 years isn't a real long time. So people are still, I think, a little confused sometimes. The International Coach Federation, oldest, largest accreditation, they'll celebrate 25 years this year. So, and it's, getting that accreditation, keeping that up, it's really no joke. And so, sometimes I get a little, life coach, because people love to make fun of it. And it's like, man, if you only knew the work and some of the money I spend just to keep it up. But the executive side is what it really got started under, which was the whole idea that the CEO, the senior vice presidents and up, they would get to a certain point in their companies, and then all of their staff would just agree with them.
Yep.
Great idea, boss. Great idea. So that executive side is what really kicked off professional coaching, because they needed that outside perspective so that they could keep growing personally and professionally and stay innovative with the companies. That's still huge, and big corporations are becoming more and more coaching. I'm up for a big job this week that looks good, but the coaching will be new for them, and they're a very large company, and we're seeing that on and on. I work with a service for that just because it's hard to get into some of these companies.
Oh, yeah.
So I try to keep my business about 50% executive, because executive pays the bills. And then the other 50% is the stuff that I really, it helps pay, the executive pays for the stuff I really like to do, which is much more the life coaching. And where that's different from therapy is when you need to look backwards. Like, I don't know how I got here. I need to analyze my family, maybe my history. I got to look back to figure out how I got here. I always say, by the time you get to me, I don't care what your family issues are. I don't care what your mommy issues are. Like that, I don't want to know about it. It comes up occasionally, but that's not what coaching is. Where are you right now, and where do you want to go?
Okay.
And that can be people that feel stuck, or that can be people that got really big goals and they know they need their hand held, and they just, I want this. It's so big that I will keep talking myself out of it. So I'm here, so you'll keep pushing me. So that's the real fun part. And it's led to all kinds of interesting things.
So what got you interested into this, saying, hey, I'm done with schooling or whatever, this is what I want to do for a living? Was it right away, or did you have to kind of get into it slowly? What's the story about how you got into it?
Yeah, so I was a commodities trader.
No shit.
I did ag commodities. And I was.
That's kind of cool, because what I do for a 9 to 5, I'm in the financial services business, so I've been doing that for almost the last 20 years. So in corporate, when I moved back to Iowa, I work for a small company now, but I worked for a company that had like 2,000 people at it when I was in Minneapolis. So gotcha. As far as your corporate jargon goes, as far as the executives, I totally get it. So
yeah,
so you're trading commodities. So you're getting out of frozen concentrated orange juice and stuff. And
right. Well, I was trading. So I did international dairy commodities for a long time.
Cool.
I got started in food ingredients. The commodity traders were having more fun, and they were both willing to train me. And so then that led to me working for several firms. And I always say that I found my coach by accident because I had made a colossal mess of my career. It was a serious shit show, and I was about to be fired. And I mean, this part's not great, but I was just like, oh my God, I just don't know if I can do this. And I had like not serious suicidal thoughts, but like I had man, this might be how I do it. I went there and I scared the heck out of me.
Damn.
And another part of my story, which we don't have to get into, but I'm a multiple cancer survivor as well. I had cancer in my 20s multiple times. And so I thought, well, now this is crazy. Like I didn't live through cancer 3 times to
deal with this
have
shit.
This thought, right? So I took myself to a therapist, and when I walked in, I laid all this out. I'm like, here's this mess I've made. I'm going to lose everything. I just bought this house. I can't lose it all by myself. I need some help. And she stands up. I'll never forget. She stands up. She goes, how'd you find me? And I said, well, you take my insurance and you're across the street from the firm I work at. And she goes, you're not even going to believe this. She goes, well, I can't remember exactly, but something to the effect of, I'm a therapist, but I'm also a coach. And right now, you need some serious coaching. And she's slapping her hands together. She's like, we're going into boot camp. And I was like, who is this crazy woman? Like, this is, she goes, where does your work think you are right now? And I said, well, I told him I was going to a therapist. She goes, perfect. She goes, I can't believe you did that. She goes, call him and tell him I told you to take the afternoon off. She goes, they'll let you. And I was like, I don't know who this woman is. Okay. So I go and I call him and I'm like, yeah, they said no problem. She goes, yeah, because they're going to get the lawyers in this afternoon. And I was like, okay, this is not helping me feel better. And she was like, let's see what we can do to save your job. And she had me to a lawyer that afternoon. She had me talk to 2 women that had been through similar situations. And it was like I had a whole team behind me. It was just incredible. They told me what to say, how to say it. It was really crazy. I was in a relationship with someone I shouldn't have been. He was a boss, and he did not want the relationship to end. I'd been trying to end it for months. When I had that whole team behind me, I'm like, done, over. It was simple for me. I don't want to say it was simple. He didn't take that well. He started stalking me. They helped me through all of that. They introduced me to police officers in the area. I mean, I had extra police driving by my house, on a regular basis for 6 months. You just can't even, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm going to do this for a living someday. So that's really, it was just my own experience with everything. And they coached me through the whole thing. I ended up keeping my job. He lost his because he kind of went off the deep end. And they helped me rebuild my reputation in the industry. People hardly even knew about it. I thought it was going to be this huge scandal across my whole industry. It was just amazing. I just thought, this is, because that was a situation where you don't want to tell friends and feel. I had a couple girlfriends I told, but I was, it was embarrassing. Yeah. And so here's this person that I can go to. I can pay them. They have excellent information. They have my best interest at heart. They're not judging me. Man, I want to do that for other people.
So how long did it take you to make the first jump to go from commodities to changing industries?
I probably was. I had it in my head. I need to do it at 50. I don't know why. That was a number that stuck. Like when I'm 50 years old, I'm going to go do that coaching thing. So in the meantime, I ended up at, I know you have I heard on your podcast, you want to tell stories of when people get fired. So I did actually end up getting fired from that firm, but that was 2 years later, after everything. It was crazy. That's another story for another day. But, and so then I was at another firm, and then, I decided to go into Fortune 500 company and manage commodities for them. And so I did that at a couple of big companies. And when I got to Kellogg here in Michigan, I was like, this isn't making sense anymore. And that just has to do with where we are in the world. Especially that company, people aren't eating a lot of cereal. Nothing against them. Great people, great company, but they kind of don't know who they are anymore. They're trying to figure it out. And it felt just like I was climbing a mountain every day. Like it just wasn't fun anymore. And my husband finally said, you have this other plan, do it now. Just do it.
Might as
you don't have to be 50. So that was kind of the beginning of okay, I'll do it. So I left, took a part-time job, and started school right before I turned 40.
So What type of training / schooling do you have to take? Is this like you have to take a course and then do like continuing ed every year, or
Yep.
is it like an actual? I have to go to a university for it. Did you do extra that, or is it just different stuff?
So there's multiple schools.
Okay.
I mean, so there's ones that you can definitely go and stay. There's great schools like that. I chose an online school,
All right.
and it
Great.
was a 15-month program.
Okay.
So I did the 15-month program, and then you can do additional programs. I just kind of got started, and then I got the accreditation through adding up the hours and just do. You have to jump through a few more hoops to do it that way, but I really just wanted to get started. I didn't want to keep doing the schooling.
No, that makes sense. I get it. So what was the first thing you did when you're like, okay, I have enough to actually do this? What's the next step?
Oh, gosh. I mean, you have to find the clients. So you start working your network. I mean, it's like starting any other business. I always said that if I was going to, I mean, the last few years in corporate, I was working so hard. I was traveling so much. The hours I was putting in, the overnight working on budgets, I said to myself, if I'm going to work this hard, it might as well be for my own thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole different kind of hard that I wasn't quite prepared for. I don't discourage people from doing it, but I had a corporate career that paid me really good money for a long time, and now all of a sudden I got to create a paycheck. It's just a different kind of hard. No regrets, but I really wasn't quite prepared for that.
So you literally just kind of start in your network. And what's your original pitch? I mean, if you're going to your network and it's people you already kind of know, what's your pitch to them? What do you say why they should listen to you?
Yeah, I mean, originally I think I was just offering anyone I knew free sessions, and I think all of 3 people took me up. So that was painful. And I think that was one of the things that they had recommended that we do. I can't even remember. And then really good friends of mine knew people, and they were able to sell me. We did some trade shows. My husband didn't join me to do the marketing side till, I was probably at it about a year and a half before he joined me. And that kind of was born from, I started getting these executive clients who had the secret idea to start their own business. Well, no wonder, right? That was the same thing that I was doing.
Yeah.
So they wanted, hey, we need a website, we need this. And he's like, I can do all that. I should do that. And that was kind of how that got started. And then, you start to get that word of mouth going, but it takes a good couple of years to really get that robust kind of referral. And that's a lot of why I started the weekly blog too, is here's how I think, here's the kind of stuff that I've worked on with my coaches, here's the kind of, and that has worked. I mean, people will say, you should see this woman. What is she? What she's about? Then they can send one of my writings to the person, and they're like, "Oh yeah, she does sound like someone I could talk to."
And I don't care what kind of business you're in, you have to have content now. It doesn't really matter what you're into. You have to be providing some kind of value on a regular basis. It's interesting. Did you jump right out of the box, start the company Winley Works, or did you just kind of, do some stuff on the side first? Or what was the first move? Was it setting up the company?
Well, that's funny too. So I had a whole plan where I took a job, which that was interesting too. So when I made the decision I was going to leave Kellogg, and I gave myself a date, and then I shared that with some friends. And one of those friends said, hey, I could use an office manager, and it's actually 32 hours a week, yet I can pay you benefits because that's full-time. It was almost too good to be true.
Cool.
And I was like, yeah, I'm on that. And 32 hours a week for me felt like part-time from the kind of hours I had been working, especially in the last year at Kellogg. So it was like I kind of just went on autopilot for a minute, and that was almost dangerous because it's like, wait, I got to get signed up for school. I had a plan, and then it's like, wait, I have all this free time, because that was the first time I could leave a job at the job for a really long time too. Because when as you work in corporate, you're often always working, right?
Yeah.
Or thinking about what you should be doing. And so that was kind of crazy. And then her and I had a plan where I'd do the school, and then I would go part-time to eventually transition into the business. And all kinds of crazy things happened, and it was a government position. And so it ended up being that after I went part-time, they're like, this doesn't work. We're going to eliminate this. So I
course.
was kind of shoved into it, which in hindsight was good for me because if I'd be talking to you still doing that job part-time, I just would have been a chicken. I just know it. So, things happen for a reason.
And so was it right out of the box? You had a vision that I'm going to call the company this and we're going to start doing this, or did you have to kind of evolve into Winley Works?
Yeah, the company, I knew I wanted to do something with, so it's funny, coaches have, I'm going to pick on my coach friends. I'm sorry, guys. The dumbest names for their companies. They're like reach higher, go for the gold, just really like inspirational. And that wasn't going to work for me. I just couldn't stomach that. And I knew Jennifer Wilson coaching was just not going to work because it's just too common.
Yes.
So I knew I wanted to do something with our names, and Kerry always wanted to retire early and be a part of it somehow. So no, I mean, I always say the hardest part, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, the hardest part is naming your business. At some point, you just got to go with it, and no one will ever remember the other names you had. Like I had a client, she had all the names for her business. And so we did a bunch of like, let's do it in radio voice. And we're just kind of working through all different to see which one might stick. So she said to me, I don't know, 2 weeks after she finally decided on the name, she says, well, it's not the one that you wanted. I said, I think I remember that, but I can tell you in all like sincerity that I don't remember what the other one was. Like I've already forgotten. And that's what I always tell people, like, you just got to pick it and run. So it was probably a month-long process, and finally it just stuck. When I had the wind part of our logo is an industrial windmill, and
Yes.
that popped into my head, and I said, that's it. It's going. And my father-in-law is a graphic designer, so I called him and I said, just make it happen. So he got somebody to send me a bunch of logo proofs, and finally enough was enough.
It makes it real when you can actually see a logo and see something in print.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's good. I mean, it was good to have that quick I mean, he probably had ones for me to look at in 2 days or less. So, yeah.
Interesting. Would you say, as far as your company goes, what are the main services that you offer? Because I'm looking at your website. You got coaching, web design, all kinds of stuff. Tell us about what you offer people.
So Winley Works, obviously WW sounds good together. But when I very first started, I did resume writing. And then it was weird. People, I don't know if it's because there's so many online templates, or I also live in a highly, frugal area. So I was just getting a lot of slack, and people wouldn't pay me the other half. So I kind of got out of it. I'm coming back to it now because, I don't know, it just feels different. I also know how to sell it better. So I write resumes. So that's kind of how the Winley Works part, resume and executive coaching. I do coaching. I offer I do some courses around, they're more kind of like fun get-togethers for if like teenage girls want to do a vision board party or, things around positivity. And then Kerry does web design. And I do a lot of copywriting, so marketing campaigns for whoever they're talking to on web design. And then Kerry's dad has also been in the promotional product business for 45 years. So we ended up rolling that in because Doug's 78. He has no intentions of retiring. And, he slowed down a lot, obviously, but it's just kind of fun to add that marketing piece to everything. So what we really say is if you've got a smaller mid-sized company, there's a lot of different things that we can do with you. We're both just really creative, and we kind of figure it out as we go.
What did your husband do before he got into the business with you?
Yeah, he was in government for a long time. He actually was a food health inspector.
No kidding.
Which wasn't really sparking his creativity, but
I can't imagine.
But he always had that artist side. Like you said, his dad did that for years, and then the counties that he worked for were small. So, when you got started, he's a little older than I am. When you got started in the 80s, the health departments didn't have any money, so he built one of the websites that they had at one point, and so you get a chance to kind of do everything when you work at those small counties.
Describe what you would consider a typical client of yours.
So the executives, obviously, those are, big company, middle management usually are higher, depending on what the company is into. I get a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business people who either want to grow or want to learn to delegate or let go of some control as their business are growing. It's a good place for coaching. I've got a couple niches on the life coaching side. One is around anxiety. So we see anxiety growing. We just launched a campaign. I've got a partner in that for 16 to 22-year-olds. And really helping them get over some of those routine anxieties and finding ways to cope with their stress. But I just wrote a proposal last week to take that program, obviously tweaked, into corporate wellness programs. Mindfulness is becoming a big thing in corporate, and we've got a couple opportunities to take this. I shouldn't even call it a program. It's really just what we do. We both coach around this topic, but to look at it from inside a corporate environment and how the different generations are communicating. People under 30 are really saying, hey, we need a safe space at work. And people over 40 are saying, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And there's some validity to it and just kind of helping bridge the gaps. It's a lot of times they're not asking for anything that we didn't want as well. We didn't know to ask, and then the words they're using mean nothing to us. So it's just kind of helping bridge those gaps. And then my other niche is around people that have to deal with difficult personalities, folks that might be narcissistic, that might be highly manipulative. We all have those people in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a trick. There's a trick to having, some kind of peaceful relationships with them. And, I think 10 years ago, oh, you got a narcissist in your life, we'll just cut them out. Well, that's not how life works.
Yeah.
Some of these people are our boss. Some of these people might be a parent or a child, and there are ways to have healthier relationships with them anyway, and that's where coaching can really come in. So therapy would be like learning about that. But then from a coaching perspective, okay, what's the relationship? Who is it? Go try this. Go build this boundary with them. I'm here for you. Because when you put a boundary in place with folks, they don't like it at first.
Yeah.
So it's like having that coach to be able to lean on and, ooh, that didn't go well. Okay, all right, deep breath. Now let's try it this way. And just holding them accountable to really getting those boundaries in place.
Well, I've always said, because I worked, maybe 12, 13 years at a big corporation, that no matter where you're at, the job itself is easy. It's the navigating the people and the personalities is the difficult part.
That's exactly true.
And it took me a long time to learn that. And I want to talk about the anxiety stuff because I follow the Anxiety Michigan page of yours. And so I want to talk about that.
Yes.
I want to talk about that too, because it's something I've had to deal with later in life. And if I would have had dealt with earlier, I probably would have had a different career, but that's a whole nother thing. But what would you say is the preferred person that comes to you as far as a client? What are you looking for in a client?
I kind of always joke I want somebody that's going to do the work.
Okay. That makes sense.
Somebody that really wants to grow and is open to resources. And those people don't stay with me long, and that's okay. If I'm a good coach, I'm going to teach you to coach yourself. And then you only need me for the really big stuff or a certain project that say you were going to run for office or something, then you might want to, hire me 2 years later to help you with that or something. But if I'm a good coach, I'm helping you learn how to coach yourself so that you don't need somebody all the time. You only need someone when stuff comes up, or you're, even myself, when I hire a coach, it's because I'm wanting to do something. So my most recent one was I wanted to get the upper level certification.
Okay.
So I hired a coach to just help me focus on that for 3 months. And right now I don't have a coach. I'm thinking about getting started with one, maybe later in the summer to actually help us with where we want to go with the anxiety work. So kind of project oriented is how I look at things, and that's where I want my clients to be too.
Tell me, you got a story or two about a bad client?
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear about some bad clients.
Oh gosh, I've had oh man, it's funny. I had for a while, and and it just took me a minute to figure it out. But I had back to back, God, I think it was 3 in a row of people that were manic depressant. And one told me, the other 2, the one eventually, when I gently suggested it, was, yeah, I've been told that, but was clearly refusing the diagnosis.
Okay.
And then the other one I actually still work with on occasion, but man, sometimes I've had them come when they're manic, and it's just like you can't believe what's going on. And so I think you might be manic today. And so one was like throwing stuff, yelling at me,
Yikes.
leaving, and then calls me, I don't know, a day or 2 later, and is completely calm and seemed to have no recollection of the session.
No shit. Okay.
So that was hard. That was like I said, it was like I had a few people in a row, and I thought, what is going on in the world? Like, what is God, life, the universe wanting to teach me here with this? So I did a little research into it, and apparently that was a thing, and maybe it still is, that people who are manic depressive should have a coach. So I'm pretty. It's a little bit out of my league on that. It depends. Not that I'm against that. It just, those were really crazy moments for me. I had another young person who, probably is highly narcissistic, but he would have all these ideas, and he'd be, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I would, okay, so last week you said you were going to put 3 posts on Instagram. He had a business he was starting. You're going to put 3 posts on Instagram. I see you did no post on Instagram, and then he would argue with me about why Instagram doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, well, you're allowed to have that opinion, but that's different than the one you had last week. So, yeah. All the crazy client stories are usually related to that. And also early on, and it's funny, my clients must have changed, because this hasn't happened in a while. Now watch it happen next week. But for a short period of time in the early days too, I was getting a lot of detailed sex life conversations.
Why?
And I remember, I'm like, okay, well, this is where you are today, and then where's this relating to where you want to go? Coming back to that. So I learned quite a few things. I had a client that was polyamorous and really took me through that world. And I'm like, wow. I don't know if I need to know this much, but it was new information for me, because that was not a place I had a lot of education. So, and no judgment, absolutely no judgment, but yeah. So that was super surprising to me.
Well, I guess, you do almost kind of play a therapist type of role. So I'm not surprised. Do you ever get anybody you ever seen that movie, What About Bob, with Bill Murray?
Yes.
You ever get anybody like that just calls you at weird hours, or shows up?
I do.
And it was like,
I do get people that will they'll try. I'm really, really good with the boundaries.
All right.
And was from the beginning. So but I have people, actually there's a former client of mine that was sending some stuff over the weekend, this weekend, and it's like, oh my gosh, I've never once answered one of these on the weekend, but okay, thanks.
Is that explain your boundaries? When will you communicate, and when won't you communicate with them? People that. So first of all, my clients that are really serious, that are really clear on their goals, they would never do that. Right. If I'm getting a weekend text message from them, it is to let me know that something went well. Okay.
Or maybe it would be something like, hey, can you put this on the list to talk about next week? And that would be it. There would be no need for a response. And you usually have a pretty good idea of who that's going to be. A lot of people will hire a coach. There's a pep talk element of it. And so the people that want that, they really like coaching, and they'll hang out for a while. But then when I start pushing them to actually make movement, they're gone pretty quick. So I usually can gauge who that is. And it's hard sometimes, because it's like, oh gosh, I think this one's not going to do the work. but they really like their coaching. They really think they're moving forward. They really think they're getting something from it. And I'm torn a lot with that, because it's like, well, maybe it's such a baby step that I'm not in tune to it. They don't have to reach the moon. So I'm always having that conversation with myself.
Do you ever have to, maybe somebody's not putting in the work, do you ever have to just sever the relationship and make, dude, you're not trying, so I can't waste my time?
Yeah, I have. I've had to, a lot of times I'll get someone who's highly narcissistic as a client. And we talk about that as coaches a lot too, because again, the old way of thinking would be that there's no chance. And that's, a lot of coaches have seen some movement, especially in the corporate environment where their job depends on it.
Okay.
So whether they're really feeling their movement or not, they're at least behaving better in the office. So it's a win. So those folks, though, when I know when it's not working, because I'm drained. I feel like I just ran a 5K after I've coached you.
Yeah.
That's not working. So the folks that have been highly narcissistic, this is bad, but I'm like, you're doing great. I think you're ready to graduate. And they're all over that. You're right. I am ready to graduate. So that's confirmation of what I was, oh, yep, I was clearly right, because they are all about this, like, graduation. But I've had to a couple times, break a coaching engagement, and it doesn't go well. I have a format that I use, and they're always very angry usually, and it is what it is. But I know when, like I said, when I'm feeling exhausted, there's something's not working.
God, I hate to stereotype them, but I'm curious if you've ever gotten one of these, bigwig corporate narcissistic guys that have made things a little uncomfortable or inappropriate, because I can just picture that for some reason.
No, I haven't had that.
All right, that's good.
Yeah, and I worked in that world, so I kind of come in with, don't mess with me.
All right, cool.
Yeah. I've dealt with that enough in my previous career that I don't get that much. Mm-mm.
Who would you say, as far as the narcissism, do you deal more with that with the men?
No.
Really?
No. It's
really? Okay.
I'm a firm believer in I think that narcissism is damaging to our world as alcoholism is. And it's mostly just because it's so darn confusing, right? We all can slide up that scale and have a behavior that if we look back on it, we're like, damn, I did that. Every human on the planet can do that. They can look back and be like, ooh, that was not my best moment. And then there's people that get stuck there. It's a safety mechanism. When you look back on people's family histories or life, a lot of times families inherit it. It's family culture. It's workplace culture. The training floors, that I worked on were full of it. And it's not all bad. A lot of it's, helps people, having those blinders on of I'm amazing or whatever it looks like for you can be of huge benefit, especially in your career. So it's just a little tricky. And like I said, I've learned a lot about it, and it's a place where, I think I'm a good coach.
Yeah. In my mind, you're doing the Lord's work there, because I've dealt with a few, people in the corporate world that know everything, and people can make life difficult for you if you're if you're not friendly with the right people. Tell me about some of your. You said you have courses / training. Tell me about a couple standard courses that you like to put somebody through.
I like to, it's usually, so let's just talk about the anxiety one.
Okay, perfect.
The way that we do that, so I have a partner on the anxiety one that is, she does it's called EFT tapping, and it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And what it is the Chinese medicine points. So the places that they put the needles for acupuncture. Okay. You either put pressure on those spots or you tap on those spots. And what it's doing is it's getting to the amygdala in the brain, and it can really get that anxiety stopped, because anxiety is when we start running the record. We start repeating the story over and over again, and you got to get that brain to basically wake up. So Beth Tuttle is her name, and she always says you got to get your brain back on board because it's gone off board. Okay. So I started coaching young people because their parents, who are my friends, were like, you got to work with my kid around this anxiety. And at first I thought the kids just had a word. I really did. I thought, oh, this isn't real. This is just silliness.
Yeah.
And then I started working with them and talking to them and understanding a lot of what the differences are. The one I always point to is we didn't have active shooter training when we were in high school.
No.
I've been through it twice, actually. When I had a couple contracts, and I was through it twice for those companies, and it's a lot for me. And I'm an adult, so it is a different world for them. And the phones have them constantly tied to stimuli.
Ugh, I can imagine.
And so I could really see where it was at play, and so I would send them Beth's video. She's been doing it for 10 years, and it's growing. The more I think we're going to see tapping be a much bigger deal. It's made a lot of national media in the last couple of years. And I said they'd maybe watch her videos, and I finally made it mandatory that they would do a couple sessions with her so they could really learn how to do it, because what it's doing is we would talk about the brain and how they're thinking, but I needed them to have the mind-body connection so that they wouldn't roll into panic attack.
Okay.
So, we will do a course in it, but we really like to work with individuals. But, we start with, when we go into the schools, they do just the Myers-Briggs personality test first. And that's a good one because it's pretty simple. There's a great site that we use, 16personalities.com, which is super user-friendly for that age group. And the idea there is that they start to see how their personality tendencies and how their brain looks at things is different. You don't think exactly like your friend, so you're not going to have the same exact experience as them, and really starting to get them to look at individuality and embrace it. And then they work with Beth, and they get that intro to, this is what tapping is, this is how you can use it, this is how you can use it before you take your test, this is how you can use it, no one knows you're using it, you can be using it while you're giving that presentation you're scared to death to give, and all of those pieces. And then we do a back and forth we start with 3 months, every other week for 3 months. So they'll see me, then they'll see her, then they'll see me, then they'll see her. And then they're bringing us the exact thing. So for one high school student, it might be, I'm so worried about what everyone's saying about me. Somebody else's might be, I'm afraid I'm not going to get into the right school. Somebody's might be parent stress or boyfriend-girlfriend stress. And so anyway, we go through all of those, and as they bring us their individual anxiety, we hope that at the end of 3, for sure the end of 6 months, that now they know the exact things that are going to work for them, and they have their individual toolbox built that they can use forever. Things like meditation, the tapping, telling themselves a new story. Again, it's different for each person.
When did you get into meditation?
So that's a funny story. I've been trying to meditate. Well, let me see if you remember this. The very first time I ever meditated, it was in Mrs. Jacobson, one of Mrs. Jacobson's classes. And
okay.
Do you remember?
I remember the name. That's about it.
She was the drama teacher.
Oh, okay.
And she used to have us lay on the stage. I don't even remember what class that was, but we laid on the stage, and she would walk us through a meditation, but she didn't call it that. I'm guessing she didn't dare call it that in the 90s.
No.
And I remember using that technique in college, and I was like, oh my God. So I've been using that on and off. And then different times throughout my cancer journey too, I would find myself, there was one time, maybe it wasn't that long, it felt like forever, where they wheeled me into a pre-op room, but they hadn't given me any of the pre-op drugs. And I'm like, are they really going to leave me here? And it was one of the only times that I kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
And I did that, I did the, okay, relax every muscle, relax. And I got myself calmed down. But I honestly have not been, I'm so bad, but I've not been meditating on a regular basis until the last 6 months.
Okay.
And I think what stuck for me this time was just needing to slow down. We were in that entrepreneur space of go, 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 go.
Mm-hmm.
And, you finally get some things going and you feel a little relief. And all the things that worked, 4 years ago as we were getting started are not working so much anymore. Plus, you can't even believe how much the world's changed in just 4 years too, as like you're saying, as far as content and where to be and where to advertise. And so it was really just, I needed to just be able to slow down and stop reacting to everything, everyone. I guess I was just finally ready.
So I don't want to forget to ask about this. How does Anxiety Michigan figure into all this stuff?
So the reason that we came up with Anxiety Michigan was because we were trying to figure out, how do we explain that we work together? How do we explain that it's a program? But we didn't want another company. We didn't want a not-for-profit. So we're calling it a platform, but it's a way for us to reach those people. Like, hey, we're here. We've been doing this for a while, referring clients back and forth. We want to get to this age. Well, like I said, we started with that age group, but this is going to be every age group, which we both had suspected. So we launched it about 6 months ago. The first month, like when we went out with everything on social media, we've got a mutual network of, I would say, women entrepreneurs is probably the best way to describe it. It's a pretty big network across Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. And we were kind of, what's our network going to think of us working together? And we had people just, it was great. I mean, we had a huge, huge response, but we didn't know what to do with it. It was kind of so overwhelming. So we just kind of put the brakes on at least a little bit of, hey, let us figure out what this is first. And I think we're still doing that. We definitely have gained more clients. We want to reach moms. There's something going on here with the corporate that's exciting. Moms is maybe not fair, but we want to reach the parent that influences the mood of the household, which traditionally is still mom. But that's also changing. I mean, households look a lot different than they used to. But because we're learning if the parent that influences the mood of the household, the anxiety of the household, it has effect on the whole family. So as we started working with a lot of these high school and college kids, we were finding that if we could get to that parent, again, most of the time it's been moms in our experience, but if we can get to mom, we actually would have a better effect on the kids' anxiety if we could help mom manage hers. So that's just kind of been fascinating. We're not sure exactly where to take that either, but it's just the findings and where we can be of most benefit.
How did you end up in Michigan, by the way?
Kellogg's.
Oh, yeah. For the job at Kellogg's?
Yeah.
Did you live did you go from Iowa to Michigan? Did you live anywhere else around the country?
I was Iowa to Minneapolis.
When did you live in Minneapolis?
I was in Minneapolis. What years was I there? 2006 and 2007.
Oh, I was there too.
And then, yeah, there was all kinds of people there. If Facebook would have been around, I'd probably still be there. I was in Chicago for a long time,
cool.
And then I came here. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I love Minneapolis. I lived up there for 15 years, so I love that town.
I loved it.
What part of town?
I just didn't know a lot of people. I was in St. Paul before it was cool. I was in downtown St. Paul, and I'll never forget. I was like, I feel like St. Paul feels safer. And I wish I had just lived in downtown Minneapolis. I don't know why, but it was close to the interstate where I could get in and out. And it was great. I loved it. And I did make some friends there, but I was working all the time. I was traveling constantly in those days for work.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody when I moved there because I moved there to, my sister had a business. She was she had this insurance marketing company, and she moved me there to get into the business. And I didn't know anybody there. I got in there like 2004, but I lived in South Minneapolis in Uptown for several years. And then the wife and I bought a house out in the suburbs or whatever. But I caught the tail end of when Uptown was still really cool, right before it kind of turned over to Apple stores and LA Fitnesses and all that. You know,
I remember when it was so cool. I was over in Uptown a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, Uptown was fantastic. Okay, I could talk about Minneapolis for hours. We're wrapping it up. It's time to kind of wrap this thing up. One more question for you. What's next for the company? What are you guys looking to do, as far as future goals?
Yeah, like I said, I would really like to see the life coach site expand. I'm working on a couple books. One's on narcissism, one's on resilience, and there's probably something around anxiety. But just trying to reach as many people as I can with some of this knowledge, but without spreading myself too thin. So it's a lot of still practicing what we preach and making sure that
we're available to what comes instead of me. You know, when I very first started, I would like write a online course. Like, I'm going to take this out to the world, or I'm going to host this retreat and everybody's going to come. And it's nice to kind of have shifted in the other direction of, okay, I get asked questions like that. Well, why don't you have a course? All right, if you'll come and bring 6 friends, otherwise, no.
Yeah.
So really starting to shift to, okay, if you're serious, I'm serious, and just kind of seeing where that is. But we know there's a need in all of the life coaching side of it, and then continuing the corporate stuff to, like I said, help fund the rest of it.
Well, good luck with those corporate folks, because I've been doing corporate for like 20 years, and it's literally a jungle out there.
Have you ever had any of your companies ever get you a coach?
I had a mentor one time, but like my wife is in the same business too, but she's always been on the HR side. So she does learning and development. So she like where her job is currently, they're putting some executive training together and stuff. And they did that. And she did a little bit of that because we worked together in Minneapolis too. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I've been through, we didn't do Myers-Briggs. We did something called Insights.
Yep. I know that one.
With the because it was crazy. I came out, my red and yellow bricks were like almost identical, and I worked for on a training team, sales training team for a long time, and they would always test out all the stuff they were bringing into the company. So, so I understand what you're dealing with, especially if you're trying to bring things to the corporate world, because it can be a pain in the ass.
What's really nice now, though, too, is that so much of it's virtual. So, like, both for the coach and the employee, you know, a lot of times I'll have somebody, they'll be in their cubicle, you know, with their headphones on, and we'll do our coaching from there, which
cool.
Which is kind of nice. I mean, it really opens up to being able to work with anyone, anywhere, which is still just blows my mind a little bit. But I love it. I mean, I've had clients from, I don't currently have anyone outside of the country, but I have several times. And it's just cool.
Oh, sweet. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you stopping by, updating us on what you got going on. We'll talk in the future. Definitely tell your brother I said hello. I haven't seen him in a grip either.
I will. Yeah. Like I said, over Christmas, he's like, have you seen this yet? And I think I had seen it. And I said, no, I haven't had a chance to listen yet. And he goes, oh, I'm listening. It's good.
Yes. Thanks for listening, Corey. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Corey. Thank you.
Oh, he probably won't listen to this one. He's like, I already know what she does.
I already know all that shit. Oh, excellent. All right. Well, like I said, it was good chatting with you, and we'll catch up with you guys again soon, and have a good one. Good luck with all the business.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. Brought to you by moonsaltmusic.info. Underground and independent hip-hop for the old heads. Free downloads available now. All show inquiries can be sent to middleagecrazypod@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Middle Age Pod. Call us at 515-478-3412. Ask for Janice. Middle Age Crazy is a Greg Valentine and Clarence J. Washington production.